Account of the 1715 Spanish Plate Fleet disaster. The 1715 Spanish Plate Fleet was not just a maritime tragedy. It was an event that affected the lives of many, both in the immediate aftermath and in the centuries that followed. Over time, stories and reminiscences have surfaced from the survivors, the treasure hunters, and even the historians who have studied the event. Their accounts provide not only a glimpse into the perilous nature of the fleet's voyage, but also into the hopes and dreams of those who sailed with it, and the generations who have tried, ever since, to recover its lost wealth. The personal accounts of survivors. After the hurricane that tore the fleet apart, the survivors were left stranded on the shores of Florida. Some managed to swim to land, while others clung to wreckage for hours, awaiting rescue. The survivors were often left with nothing but the clothes on their backs and the haunting memories of what had transpired. One such survivor, Juan Garcia, an able-bodied seaman aboard the Nuestra Señora de la Santísima Trinidad, remembered the night of the storm vividly. According to his recollection, the wind howled like a beast, and the waves were so high that it felt as if the ship was being lifted from the sea itself. He recalled how, in the chaos, he had clung desperately to a piece of broken mast as the ship went down. Through the roaring winds and the crashing of waves, I held on to that splintered mast, he wrote in a letter to his family years later. I thought of my home in Spain, of my wife and children, and prayed I might see them again. But as the night stretched on, I began to lose hope. The sea seemed to devour everything, leaving only darkness. Juan Garcia was one of the fortunate few who made it to the shore. But he was forever haunted by the loss of his comrades, the ship, and the treasure that had been so close to their grasp. As the years passed, he would recount his experiences to fellow Spaniards, trying to find solace in the camaraderie of others who had been through similar misfortunes. But for many, the experience was so traumatic that it left them with a lifelong sense of loss and grief. The reminiscence of a lost ship. Another poignant story comes from an anonymous sailor who survived the sinking of the San Miguel. This sailor, who later became known as the Ghost of the Plate Fleet, had joined the fleet in Havana as a young man seeking fortune. For him, the loss of the ship was the loss of his dreams. He was just a boy when he boarded the San Miguel, eager to be part of the famed treasure fleet and to prove his worth to his family and the Spanish crown. His life, however, took a dark turn when the storm hit. The San Miguel was one of the first ships to be struck, and the sailor could never forget the sight of his comrades scrambling in the chaos. I saw men falling into the sea, their faces twisted in terror as the ship was torn apart, he recalled in a brief journal entry he later left behind. I thought that was the end of me too. Miraculously, he was thrown onto the rocky shore of Florida's coastline. He remembered wandering in a daze, hungry and cold, unable to comprehend the full extent of what had happened. For weeks, he wandered the beach, haunted by the visions of his shipmates and the treasure that had been lost to the depths. He recalled seeing what was left of the fleet, their broken hulls half submerged in the surf like the remnants of a forgotten empire. And yet, despite the devastation, he could not shake the feeling that the wealth still lingered somewhere beneath the water. I would return to that beach, year after year, the sailor confessed to a fellow adventurer decades later, searching not just for gold, but for some kind of peace. It never came. The Ghost of the Plate Fleet, as he came to be known, lived out the rest of his days obsessed with the treasure, returning each year to Florida in the hopes of uncovering a piece of the fleet's riches. But it was not just wealth he sought, it was closure. The memory of the disaster haunted him until the end of his days. Treasure hunters longing for riches. As time passed, the remnants of the fleet became a siren call to treasure hunters. The 1715 Spanish Plate Fleet disaster became a legend, and for generations, the story inspired countless expeditions aimed at recovering the sunken wealth. While there have been successful recoveries, the full extent of the treasure has always eluded those who sought it. One such treasure hunter was Mel Fisher, an American who became famous for his efforts in the 1950s and 60s to recover the treasure from the 1715 fleet. Fisher, who had spent decades searching the waters of Florida, had an almost religious obsession with finding the lost riches. "I was driven by something deep within me," Fisher once said, recalling the moment he first became captivated by the story of the 1715 fleet. I knew that what lay beneath the sea was more than just gold and silver. It was history, it was a part of a great tragedy, and it was calling to me. In 1955, Fisher's persistence paid off when he found the wreckage of the Nuestra Señora de Atocha off the Florida Keys, and with it, a treasure trove of gold and silver. Among the items recovered were gold bars, silver coins, emeralds, and jewels, treasures worth millions of dollars. The find brought Fisher fame and fortune, but it also reinforced the idea that, even in the midst of loss, there was something irresistible about the lure of treasure. Fisher's success brought attention to the ongoing search for the rest of the fleet, and many adventurers followed in his footsteps. But despite the treasure that was recovered, Fisher never stopped believing there was more to find. He would often reminisce about the days of the hunt, saying, "The treasure is there, I know it is." It's like the sea has a secret that it doesn't want to give up. Fisher died in 1998, but his legacy lives on in the continued search for the lost Spanish Plate fleet's treasures. His story is just one of many that are tied to the fleet's fate, a reminder that the disaster is as much about obsession and longing as it is about treasure. Court findings and reflections. After the disaster, the Spanish crown, which had suffered a severe financial blow, commissioned investigations to understand how such a calamity could have happened. The findings from the Court of Inquiry were damning, revealing that the fleet had been poorly prepared for the hurricane season. The ships had not been adequately stocked with provisions, and the lack of coordination and poor leadership contributed to the fleet's destruction. Some of the captains had ignored the orders to wait in Havana for a more favorable weather window. They were eager to return to Spain with their treasure, and that haste led them into the storm's path. As the inquiry revealed, several of the ships were not seaworthy, and their crews were ill-prepared for a hurricane of such magnitude. However, the Spanish government was also careful not to point fingers too harshly. Many of the officials involved in the investigation were themselves part of the imperial machinery that had sent the fleet on its ill-fated journey. The court findings were tempered with the understanding that the Spanish Empire had faced many challenges, including a slow decline in its global dominance. The fleet's continued influence. The tragic loss of the fleet and the treasure has continued to fuel the imagination of those who study it. Every year, new discoveries are made along the Florida coast. Coins, gold bars, and other relics are recovered, and the fleet's legacy lives on in the stories of the survivors, the treasure hunters, and the adventurers who seek to unlock its mysteries. For many, the story of the 1715 Spanish Plate fleet is not just about the treasure that was lost, but also about the human desire to chase after something greater than ourselves, a quest for wealth, glory, and immortality. The fleet's legacy endures, not only in the artifacts it left behind, but in the enduring human spirit that continues to seek out the lost treasures of the past. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons to stay updated with more content. The creator of Polly Speaks For You has always been driven by a passion for giving a voice to those who need it most. Whether it's through text-to-speech technology or voice recognition, the goal has always been to create tools that help individuals, especially those with disabilities or learning challenges, communicate and interact with the world in a way that is meaningful and empowering. The stories shared, such as those about the sailors aboard the HMS Victory, are not just about reliving history. They are about the power of voice. Through Polly Speaks For You, the creator saw an opportunity to use storytelling as a medium to convey courage, strength, and resilience, much like the sailors of the past. These stories are intended to inspire and engage users, reminding them of the importance of their voices, both literally and metaphorically. The idea behind these stories is to showcase how technology, particularly speech technology, can be a tool for preserving history, while also empowering users with the capability to share their own narratives. By blending history with technology, the creator of Polly Speaks For You aims to demonstrate how powerful a voice can be in shaping and sharing our world, past and present. In a sense, these stories represent more than just entertainment. They are a way for the creator to give a voice to history, to connect with users in a deeply human way, and to remind them that their voices matter, whether they are telling their own stories or those of others. The creator's work in developing Poly Speaks for You is never just about making a functional tool. It was about making sure that every voice had the power to be heard. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons to stay updated with more content. This content has been adapted from the powerful features of Poly Speaks for You, South Africa's leading accessibility software. Learn more at www.polyspeaks4u.co.za. We invite you to support this meaningful dyslexic initiative, crafted and developed by an individual who personally understands the challenges of dyslexia.